I'm delighted to see you all here at this inaugural session of our third roundtable consultation on air quality. It's on the theme of energy transitions, subsidies, and air quality management. It's this entire venture to get a roundtable of interested stakeholders and legislators together goes back to 2017, when I brought together a far smaller but still very diverse group of individuals for the first time, comprising a few parliamentarians, a few senior medical practitioners, including the Director General of AIMS, experts from civil society, academia, and other stakeholders, to a closed-door roundtable discussion on how we could collectively address the serious challenge of deteriorating air quality in our country. Since then, I'm very pleased that this platform has grown considerably and brought in more voices to a common dialogue dedicated to clearing the air and to finding blue skies in our lifetime, I hope, Prakash Bhai. You've been very, very kind to take out time from your schedule to speak. I told him very frankly that while I think we had 11 political parties represented at last year's edition, your party was conspicuous by its absence. And I'm delighted that you have set the right example to them, because unfortunately, or otherwise, bad air doesn't discriminate amongst party members. We all have to breathe it. And it should be a collective endeavor of everyone. I'm very grateful that you're here. And while we have often found ourselves both on opposite sides of the ideological divide, but on the same side of many important conversations, I've amicably debated with him on the floor of the Lok Sabha, occasionally had an opportunity to congratulate him, such as when he was education minister and voluntarily relinquished certain powers the education minister has of appointment and disappointment. And he was kind enough to acknowledge that. And here on air quality, I think it's very clear after his remarks that we can all say there are no political sides to this issue. We're unified in our common endeavor and commitment to solving this problem. Now, in July 2018, AirQualityAsia, represented today by myself and my esteemed colleague from Ireland, Honourable MJ Nolan, and the Observer Research Foundation jointly organized the second roundtable. So I mentioned 11 MPs came and attended, senior experts from various organizations. And today, I'm very, very proud and pleased that the Energy and Resource Institute, TERI, has graciously agreed to jointly host this year's edition with AirQualityAsia. Let me once again thank Dr. Ajay Mathur, who opened the proceedings so wonderfully well, Dr. Sumit Sharma, Dr. Anju Goyal, and the organizing team at TERI for all they've done for this year's edition. All of you are individuals who are well aware of the dimensions and the ominous implications of our complex challenges of already bad and frankly worsening air quality in our country. Many of you have dedicated your professional careers to developing solutions to tackle this problem. And you are, as a result, far more conscious than many people are in our country of how this single issue could derail the development story of India if it's not addressed in time. And I say this with no sense of exaggeration. In fact, the 2017 State of the Global Air Report, published by the Health Effects Institute, revealed that since 1990, the absolute number of ozone-related deaths in India has risen by a staggering 150%. And Javadekar Saab is right, every party has been in power since 1990, including mine and his and others. And the ozone-related deaths keep climbing. The economic implications of deteriorating air quality are equally ominous, with a 2013 World Bank study estimating that welfare costs and lost labor income due to air pollution cost the exchequer nearly 8.5% of India's total GDP. Labor losses due to air pollution, in terms of the number of man days and woman days lost, resulted in a reported loss of $55.39 billion in a single year. And further, premature deaths cost the country an estimated $505 billion, which is 7.6% of our country's GDP. So we're talking about a serious issue. And that's why I'm particularly glad the Environment Minister takes it so seriously. I mean, frankly, I'm personally a sufferer. I have I'm prone to a lot of respiratory allergies. And when I step off the plane in Delhi, particularly between November and February, I feel this problem personally. My eyes start itching and watering, my nose starts leaking, my throat starts scratching. I mean, itching. It's just the whole experience is familiar to so many of you. As a first-time grandfather, quite recently, it dismays me when my grandchildren who live in New York, or rather my son and daughter-in-law live in New York, say they won't bring my grandchild for Christmas to Delhi because they don't want to subject him to the air here at that time of year. And as for my diplomatic friends who are present today, I think we all know the story. I've told it in print already, of a very good friend of mine who at his exit medical, when he was transferred back from Delhi, was asked by his doctor, I won't mention the European country where he's from, how many packs do you smoke a day? And he said, I've never touched a cigarette in my life. The doctor said, you have the lungs of at least a 3 packs a day smoker. And of course, all he had done was breathe Delhi's air for 4 years or 3 years. It really is that bad. I think we all know the well-publicized case of the former New York Times correspondent in India, Gardner Harris, who wrote a famous, or to some people notorious, article in 2015 explaining why he was leaving his post prematurely because merely living in Delhi was damaging his children's health. The asthmatic travails of his 8-year-old son were the subject of his article, and he wrote, and I quote, Delhi is suffering from a dire pediatric respiratory crisis, with a recent study showing that nearly half of the city's 4.4 million school children have irreversible lung damage from poisonous air, unquote. I'm sorry to say this. I mean, this is the reality we have to face. We know that foreign nationals are contemplating a visit to India, are reconsidering it on account of this debilitating issue. Ambassadors have told me stories of diplomats who've declined postings here for this reason alone, because they have young children. Firms are finding it difficult to get executives to move to India, and in some cases are even organizing briefings on the scale of the problem to their employees. Embassy staff are looking to either not move to India or are considering shortening their current postings within the country. And now all of these foreigners have a choice. We don't. We live in this country, we are from this country, and we need, frankly, to stop seeing our country being held perennially hostage by bad air. But as I've often pointed out, it's not too late to solve this problem. And I do say that it can be solved through comprehensive and coordinated strategies, through political will, and through all of us chipping in. In order to do so, we need to understand the key realities of the issue. That's why this roundtable was initiated 2 years ago. We also need to recognize that this is not merely a New Delhi issue or a North Indian issue or even a purely urban Indian issue. It's a crisis that affects all parts of India, affects rural and urban, and even my own constituency of Thiruvananthapuram, which is where I'd like to go to escape to from Delhi. The truth is that it is an area which my constituency is about 66% rural, and the city itself is on the seacoast. But we've seen a tangible dip in air quality in recent times. Everyone knows about the Diwali dip in Delhi, because every year you'll find, and the same thing happened last year, happened the year before, thank you, that you will see articles and graphs showing the dramatic drop in air quality the day after Diwali in the city. But in South India, Diwali is not a major festival. And yet in Thiruvananthapuram, after Diwali last year, November 2018, the city's air quality levels dropped from satisfactory to moderate on the AQI that the minister was talking about, a position that it maintains today on account of other factors than Diwali. I mean, there are increased construction, automobile traffic, burning of waste, and so on. But if even a place like Thiruvananthapuram, famous for its clean air, can reach to where it is today, then it has worrying implications for the situation in the rest of the country. And we all know how bad Delhi is. We also need to recognize what many in this room know well, that this is not a situation we can choose to confront just when it suits us, when we're choking and spluttering in the smog-filled winter months, which of course holds North India hostage between that November to February period each year. Our basic problem remains year-round. You just look at the AQI levels for New Delhi today, several months away from Diwali and from that winter window. It's PM 2.5 or 178 this morning, signaling terribly unhealthy air, even well ahead of the scheduled smog in our city. At the same time, we need to recognize that the consequences of poor air quality are not limited to a purely environmental concern, but far beyond. It's a national health issue. Several of our top doctors have demonstrated, backed by widely available public data. It's an economic and developmental issue, as research from the World Bank has illustrated. I gave you the figures. It's an issue of how well India can work, how India consumes, how India attracts the world and visitors, an issue of India travels, and an issue that is ultimately, therefore, central to the very future of our country. So given the spectrum of topics that the issue has linkages with, it's a problem that should be addressed collectively and by a diverse collection of stakeholders, which is why you're here in the room today. What's true there is that the governments at both the center and in our states are tasked with the development and management of our key strategies to address this crisis, and to expect the government to do it alone will not do sufficient justice to the immense magnitude of the problem. As I stand before you today, I'm truly pleased to acknowledge that we're indeed taking the fight for clean air forward. Two of the gentlemen sitting here on this podium with me are in the vanguard of the struggle. We now have under Prakash Javadekar the National Clean Air Program, which has been rolled out by the present government. In our first roundtable, we demanded such a clean air policy. We officially have one now. It's a welcome step, but it must be used effectively to comprehensively bring down air pollution levels. With any program, there's always scope for further improvement. I hope the Minister will take into constructive consideration some of the key takeaways that experts will highlight in their respective sessions tomorrow, which is why I'm very grateful that Mr. Javadekar is sending a representative. In addition, we too will, with Terry, put together a report that we can share with him. I'm sure the Minister will join me in agreeing that our strategies to tackle poor air must be ambitious in their scope, courageous in terms of our targets, bold in our regulatory framework, but most important, collaborative in terms of bringing together the brightest minds from our enviable, cutting-edge human and technical resources and the vast knowledge pool that we are fortunate to be blessed with in the country. After all, that's always been the main motivation of this roundtable platform. It's a platform that not only helps build and strengthen bridges between the government, the political class, and civil society, but one that seeks to leverage these relationships to provide a fitting answer to India's challenge of poor air quality. I wish all of you who are going to participate in these deliberations well. I thank personally once again Prakash Javadekar ji for honoring Ajay Mathur's and my invitation to come and inaugurate this session, and I look forward to some truly effective and constructive deliberations tomorrow. I think Professor Roy, Shogato Roy, is also with us from the airport. Thank you, Shogato. One more MP has joined us straight from the airport, and we're looking forward to his presence tomorrow as well. In the meantime, I think I hand back to Ajay to wrap up the inaugural session.